It's time for This Week in Location-Based Marketing, episode number 31, and we're recording this live. Well, it's live for Asif and I on June 25th. That's a Saturday night, late in the evening, because it's the only time we can get Asif and I in the same time zone, maybe in the same country for a while. Anyways, my name, your co-host, Rob Woodbridge from Untether.tv and robwoodbridge.com, and at Rob Woodbridge on Twitter. And with me, as always, from Toronto, Ontario, Canada, when he stops by once in a while, is the one, the only
Asif Khan from the Location-Based Marketing Association.
Found at thelbma.com, and you can find Asif at Asif R. Khan on Twitter, or at the LBMA on Twitter as well. It's really been interesting to follow you the last couple of weeks, Asif, because you have traveled the globe from Amsterdam down to Miami, and then you're heading out, I know, tomorrow morning, bright and early, to Chicago. And in between, you decided to do a little podcast, and we appreciate it. So the people who watch this,
you got to stay up on what's going on. You can't just fly around all over the place and talk to people. So you got to stay on the news. And there's a lot of news again this week.
Well, let's start with just a wrap up of Miami and in the Latin American location-based marketing scene, because that's where you were. Yeah. So a couple days down in Miami, a gathering of all the players, the carriers, the providers, those that want to be providers in the Latin American community. So lots of folks up from Brazil and Mexico and Venezuela and all over the place, really. And really interesting. I mean, it was a good 2 days of discussion, a lot of education, I think, for a lot of the folks down there, exploratory type of view of location, trying to figure out, what they can and can't do. And I think there's some obvious differences between where we are in North America or in Europe versus, what's going on down there. And I think the markets are very different as well. So, if I was to sum it up, I would say that, there's a big opportunity for the carriers in the Latin American market to kind of take ownership of the location ecosystem, just because you have, as you know, Rob, being in mobile, you've got a lot of prepaid phones in Latin America. You've got not a very high smartphone penetration rate in most of the countries down there, and you have the trusted relationship between the consumer and the carrier. Yes. For
the most part, and not many people with credit cards. So when you take all those things and put them all together, it means that a lot of the apps that we have here, Foursquare-like solutions, app-based solutions that are centered on the smartphone, aren't necessarily going to work well down there. Solutions such as Placecast or Intersect or things that use the cell tower triangulation type of model, are probably better suited to that market. And so we'll see. I think the carriers are in a strong position. Is kind of what I took away from that.
Well, it's really interesting because opportunities abound for certainly the growth. I know that BlackBerry and RIM a number of years ago did a push into Latin America, and we're somewhat successful because of the relationships that they have with the carriers. That's what they tried to leverage to kind of open up the smartphone market down there. But
I know at one point one of the speakers polled the audience as to what device they had on them, and it was definitely BlackBerry was well in the lead in terms of the breakdown, followed by iPhone and very little Android. I was surprised at that, but anyhow.
Well, it's interesting. So takeaway, obviously, big opportunities, carriers. Certainly the lack of smartphones. That's probably why even Facebook went down there with their native app in a feature phone instead of a smartphone. So, but big opportunities. Do you think that there's opportunities for companies like Foursquare down there, or is this really a carrier play?
Personally, I think it's a carrier play. And to some extent a credit card company play. As they kind of start to explore prepaid card and things like that. Yeah. So we'll see. It remains to be seen. But I can tell you that some of those carriers down there are very, very big companies with very deep pockets and control media and television and other parts of the ecosystem. So that whole view that we have of integrated content and integrated, view of media around locations. I think in some respects you could argue the carriers down there are maybe better positioned, to take advantage of it than some of the ones here. So anyways, good discussion, lots of interest. We'll see what evolves over the next year or so.
Yeah, I mean, really interesting stuff. And we were down there for when I ran Rove, and very interested in the Latin American market, and because it's emerging. And I think that's one of the things that we should leave people with, is that there are emerging opportunities here for companies down there. But today's show, really about the news, or this week's show, centers around some big companies. I was commenting right before we went live that this is kind of going to be another Foursquare show, because there's lots of Foursquare news. There's TomTom news. There's Shopkick news. There's lots of funding. By my account, 3 deals, $88 million funded for 3 deals, but 2 of the big ones. And we're going to talk about all of that starting right now. But really, the first news item that you brought back with you, obviously, came, I'm going to assume, from the event in Miami, or announcement in Miami, around TomTom expanding into their coverage into Latin America and beyond.
Yeah. So I think, it's interesting to see, one of the byproducts of, it's not obviously directly related to the conference, but TomTom, made an announcement that they're introducing the first kind of real map of Venezuela in particular. Yeah. And, they've already got, some of their products covering, Chile and Argentina and Mexico and so on. But one of the big challenges, I was talking to some of the guys down there that are in the mapping business that were at the conference, and mapping in some of these Latin American countries is totally different than it is here, because it's so rural. There's not a lot of roads. The way you address buildings and houses is totally different. I mean, like literally, I was in a conversation with a guy from one location, and Costa Rica actually, and we were talking about some things, and he was saying sometimes when you're looking for directions to a place, like, up in the mountains or somewhere, it'll be like, you drive to this place, look for the house that with the red door, and then head 2 kilometers left of there, and that's where it is. And it doesn't have an actual address. There's no postal code system. There's no, that's just how it is. And so how do you, what are points of interest and all these kinds of things, in that context, it's totally different. And so, these kinds of maps that TomTom is bringing, are extremely relevant if you want to do any kind of, location-based service. So again, we've talked about TomTom and Navtech and some of these guys before, but, that ability to kind of license the content and license this mapping data into guys who want to build third-party apps is crucial. So, kudos to them for kind of doing the work to make it happen.
Well, it strikes me as a huge challenge, but one of the things that I think was limiting before was simply that the collection procedures weren't as easy. And I'm going to assume that this is a very difficult process, and they're going to stick with some of the big cities here instead of going into the rural areas where you're right, it's
Caracas, and and they've announced a couple other cities that they're gonna do later in the year. But yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, and I read somewhere. Did I read somewhere where they were actually they were gonna map the beaches, which I think is the best thing to do, really, quite frankly.
Well, it's tourist data, right, that you want.
Yeah, so they were there's some silly around there, 300 or 400 beaches that they're going to be mapping and plotting them on the map and allowing you to get there at least. So a beach is a stagnant, it doesn't move very often. So
yes.
I can't imagine mapping.
But the points of interest might, right? I mean, you might have, cabana number 12.
That's right.
You just gotta find on that particular beach. So,
see, this is where a company like TomTom or DMTI or these guys who are in the big companies that are in this business really do dominate or can dominate over companies like Foursquare. User generated content is always going to be suspect. Right. I mean, it might be feet on the street, but when you're going to rely on it for your business, you're going to use these big guys like TomTom, the guys who are doing the navigation for business.
No question. So, anyways, kudos on them for kind of doing the work and starting to map out what's going on in some of these Latin American places and making it available to others that want to have real accurate data.
So I'm interested about the third world nations, the developing nations like India, because I've driven in India and I've driven in Indonesia. And the last thing that I'm ever
You're a brave man.
I know. The last thing that I'm ever doing is I will never take my eyes off the road. Like, you just can't. So I can't imagine putting a GPS on my dash and it telling me where to go and trying to figure that out in those nations. Because it is, it's frenetic. It's a pace that you cannot look away. So I'm interested to see how TomTom does this, if it's successful. But I'm sure it will. Somebody's got to map it, and somebody's got to map these nations.
Yeah.
Second story. This might be a little bit longer, simply because of the players involved. Starting with Amex and Foursquare, who now, they teamed up. When was that? In the spring, early in the spring.
Yeah, it was South by Southwest, actually. Yeah. It was the first trial, right? So,
and these guys, and so now that they're taking this concept of their mobile wallet, national, right across the U.S. with some of the big retail chains that they've got as partners. So why don't we talk about this? Because Foursquare's in the news everywhere. So, I think the big thing that they announced is this one, and then the other two will follow up in a little while. But so let's talk about Amex and Foursquare.
Yeah. So, obviously the trial went well.
I'd say.
And what this is really trying to solve, this relationship between Amex and Foursquare, and obviously MasterCard's doing similar things and so on. But really what this is about is, we've got all these deal services, we've got all these location-based, offers and so on and so forth. But as you and I have talked about many times, there's this issue of, how do you, from a measurement perspective, track all the way to completion of the transaction and actually know that, yes, I presented an offer or a deal, somebody took advantage of it and actually purchased something. And I can tie all of that together, from I presented the offer to here's how much was spent or revenue generated, et cetera. And so one way to do that, at least in the interim until we get to NFC, is to have the credit card companies get involved. And so that's really what's happening here, is just to say, look, okay, here's the offer, but pay for this thing via your Amex card, and we're able to track redemption of that offer because it's associated to the card. And then we can obviously show the retailer or show whoever, that this thing's working. This Foursquare thing is not just all, hype. It's, there's some value here, and there's some actual measurement associated with it.
So they quite literally, they get push deals. They sign up for it. They get push deals, and you have to register your Amex account with your Foursquare account, or your Foursquare account with your Amex account. You get push deals.
Foursquare with Amex is how
Foursquare
it works.
with Amex.
Yeah.
You get push deals, and then you walk in and you buy something, and a deal is applied, but it gets reimbursed maybe 3 to 5 days later after the fact, right? So you don't show a coupon or anything like that.
Is you associate your Foursquare account with your Amex card. You walk into a participating retailer, you check in on Foursquare.
Yep.
And then you basically have to, there's like a minimum spend or something like that in terms of whatever the offer is at that particular retailer. And some of the retailers that are, because now this is national, are H&M, Sports Authority, people like that. So if you spend the required amount, then basically you receive a credit of some value, like let's say $10 or I think it's $10 on a $75 purchase is one of the things I read. So if you spend $75 at H&M, through this Foursquare Amex relationship
on your Amex card,
then what happens is you get a $10 credit on your Amex card.
Okay, and you have to check into the location, obviously, or something.
Yes, you have to check into the location.
Yeah. We like this deal. We think that this kind of seamless couponing, so to speak, is very interesting. And certainly if they pop up the deals around you, sign up for it, you get notified of some deals around you. But again, the only thing I don't like about this is the fact that it's not driving activity. I have to be in proximity to that location before I get a notification. Or I guess I can find out through typical couponing that I can actually go into the store and get a discount. Again, this is impacting bottom line price, and as much as this is simple,
but not to the same to the same kind of level of a Groupon, right? Kind of erosion here. So the two examples they threw out are, for in the H&M case, it's $10 on a $75 spend. Sports Authority, it's $20 on a $50 spend.
That's 40%.
Yeah, so that's significant. But here's the interesting thing: is that money, I don't think, or I don't know, anyways. I don't think that's coming from the retailer.
But you know what else? It's also that I read that Foursquare is not getting a dime out of all of this.
No, they're not getting any of it. But I think it's Amex that's actually giving you that
the discount.
That discount. It's not the retailer.
Wow.
Right?
So they're making enough money off you in interest to be able to give you a $20 or 40% discount.
I guess. I don't know.
Well, that's interesting. But I mean, it's interesting that
Foursquare gets nothing. That's the thing. This is all about increasing Foursquare from 10 million users to 15 million users.
Well, that's the other announcement that came out. So this little thing is rolling out across the U.S. in select stores. I know it's H&M and Sports Authority. I don't know if there are any other stores involved, but at least they're now national across the U.S.
Yeah.
So that's done, and I love the fact that we're testing things here, and I like that Amex is getting involved here. But the big announcement, I think, from Foursquare this week was they hit their 10 millionth user. Is that a big announcement now, or is that a big number?
I don't think it is. I kind of read that and I said, so what? In fact, when we talked back at the end of the year when they were talking about their numbers,
yeah.
It's taken them, because I think back at New Year's Eve when we were talking last time about Foursquare numbers, because they put out that big infographic about how many check-ins they had for the year and all that kind of stuff. And what was the number then? It was like six.
Yeah, it was 5. It was between 5 and 6. It was 6 million, I think. Yeah,
it was 6 million.
Yeah.
So what are we saying? Okay, well, in 6 months now, we've added another 4 million. Whereas, they were talking about, before, that they were growing at, 1 million a month, and it was doubling every month. Well, obviously that's not happening.
And remember, there was a lot of talk about Foursquare being on the same growth chart or growth pattern as Twitter. So I wonder now, we should probably map that again and see what the difference is.
I'm not saying 10 million's insignificant. It's a good number, but I don't think that they're actually growing as fast as they think they should be growing.
Well, let's put it in perspective. I mean,
the way they talk about how they're growing.
Yeah, can you do this? And we'll come to the announcement, a little bit later on. But can they? Can you compare this to anything else? These check-in services. I mean, I've sat with companies that you have never heard of, that have had 3 or 4 million downloads, right?
Right.
And they're active users. So the number of downloads don't really resonate anymore.
No.
I think with anybody. I think it's the number of active users that resonates, and that's a number that is elusive, I think, in this deal.
Yeah, and Foursquare will never give you a straight answer on that. But I've heard, and you and I were talking about this just before we went live. I've heard numbers around 3 to 3.5 million of that 10 are active users. But who knows? Who knows really what the actual number is?
I mean, I think that,
and what is how do you define an active user? If somebody uses it once a week, somebody, again, what's the definition? But for me, I would say, you got to at least be using it every week.
Yeah, and right? In an active way. And so I think that, this is an interesting time for Foursquare, especially we're going to talk about their funding in a second. But this Amex deal is indicative. It's not really inventive, but it's pushing the boundaries. These are big players, and hopefully this can lead to some more downloads for their software, more usage from their software. I think recency is very important. If you download it and you're not using it, you're not relevant to these numbers.
So here's what I would say. So if Foursquare is not double the user base by the end of this year, if they're not at 20 million, by the end of this year, then to me it's not growing fast enough, because if it's taking you that long to go from, but I do like, some of the positioning with Amex and some of these deals with, Super 8, and the 7-Eleven thing, that these are scale deals. These are about going national, with big brands, with big partners, and leveraging those networks to grow that user base and kind of go more mainstream.
Well, we'll see. So 20 million by December 2011, right?
Yeah.
All right.
Let's see what's happening. Let's see what that infographic at year end looks like.
All right. So by Jan 1 or December 31st, 2011, 20 million. That would impress me a little bit, I think.
Yeah.
Being from Canada with a slightly larger population than that. We're going to come back to Foursquare. You can bet we're going to come back to Foursquare. In fact, I might put like a $52 million bet on that. So we'll come back to that. Third story, interesting but relevant, again, to the location and the check-in and the deal situation that's going on. It seems like everybody's building an app that's a deal. This is a company called B Media, B-E-E, Media. That is,
so B Media, it's actually homegrown out of Toronto. So these guys are going in a slightly different direction, and it kind of actually leads into our next story. So they're really focused more on the indoor location play. So they basically do location-based offer delivery over Wi-Fi network. Okay, so what's happening here is you have an app. So B Media has an app. You download this app, and you're connecting to a Wi-Fi network that is provided by B Media in a retail location. It could be a shopping mall. So they've announced with this announcement they've got Canadian Tire store wired up in the heart of Toronto at Yonge and Dundas. They've got a deal with Callaway REIT, which is the operator of Smart Centers, which is kind of the base for every Walmart, pretty much.
Yep.
Walmart Supercenter in Canada. And so all the stores in those kind of super malls, let's call it that, would have the ability to leverage this Wi-Fi network system and then push deals out as individual retailers across this network. So if you have the app, you walk in, you connect to this Wi-Fi network, and as you're roaming around the mall or as you're roaming around the supercenter, basically, deals are pushed to you. And what I do understand is there is some notion of the consumer basically defining profile sets as to what their interests are, and then getting relevant deals. So it is about value and relevance that we talk about all the time. But giving the retailer control over, what they're pushing.
So does the app automatically connect you to the Wi-Fi network, or do you have to do that manually?
It auto connects you.
It does. Okay, so there's no human intervention here where you have to actually have to connect because that would be a bummer. Yeah. Really, another technical hurdle for a lot of people.
Well, the technology's come a long way in these apps now. Like there's a lot of things you can do to actually through a different version of push notification, let's call it, where you can actually ping a device and turn on Bluetooth and turn it off, turn on Wi-Fi and turn it off.
Right.
Remotely, let's call it that. To activate these devices and basically enable them to receive.
Well, so this is just I like the idea of Wi-Fi. So they actually, what would they do? They would put basically a hub, a Wi-Fi hub in the mall, and it would cover the mall, or would they use? Obviously, they'd have to use some kind of technology in order to be able to broadcast.
So they basically set up multiple routers throughout the property, whatever it is, to ensure enough coverage, but also to do in some respects similar to what Shopkick does, triangulation across those Wi-Fi routers, so you can actually determine the position of the individual as to where they are in that mall.
Yeah.
So it is about narrowing down specific position. So it in some respects you could use it for navigation.
Yep.
Like personal navigation, like I'm here in the mall right now and I'm trying to get there. So you can use it for that, but it also, obviously from the perspective of pushing offers as you're standing in front of a certain store or in a certain aisle in the Best Buy or whatever. So yeah, it can do all of that.
You get enough stores and enough malls and enough locations with this technology involved in it. So this Wi-Fi and these guys, so B Media can then start to rent out the connectivity. So rent out connection to the Wi-Fi area for third-party developers to be able to build their own apps or something like that.
Well, there's a lot you can do. I mean, if you own the Wi-Fi infrastructure in a facility like this, not just from a location deal offer app perspective, but you could provide closed network security monitoring systems, for the retailers themselves. You can do all kinds of things that you can run across that network. So,
well, and that's interesting.
Interesting offer.
Yeah.
Let's see what happens with it.
Well, good old Canadian company, and that's what I love to see. I love to see these Canadian companies getting, and I love to see that Canadian Tire, the bellwether franchise in Canada here, actually start to participate in the technology.
Yeah.
Well,
yeah.
Good.
No. Good on them for trying it.
So just go. It's bmedia.com, I think, is the URL for those guys. And
yes.
And the name, I love the name. I mean, it's Woolridge, which is is as close to me being a CEO as you'll get these days. So
Woodbridge,
yeah. So B Media, getting into this whole personal mobile world and shopping world. So this is a direct, I'd say direct competitor or an alternative route that our next story. The focus of this company is the story of Shopkick, and these guys are notorious for being inside of companies. But they're really been focused on the large guys, the Best Buys of the world.
Yep.
And Shopkick, now looking at small businesses, they realize, hey, the engine of the economy, smaller companies, right? And there are many more of those than the large ones. So they're stepping into small businesses, and they're giving away their service?
Yeah. You know what? I read this, and I wasn't at first glance. I was like, "This doesn't make any sense for them." Was kind of my reaction, and I went into it and I go, I actually see the value of Best Buy and Macy's and Target and all these big retailers, that they've been successful in getting on board with the technology, deploying it, because. One of the beauties of Shopkick is in a big environment, like let's take a Best Buy for example. What's happening with a lot of these stores is they're organizing internally within the retail environment into mini departments or sections. So like you walk into a Best Buy and you go to the left and
movies, video games, appliances,
Yeah, but not even that now. By brand, they're starting to do it now. Okay. So, like, here's the Sony section, and here's the Apple section, and here's the HP section, and here's the, and so you can actually do almost like mini scavenger hunt type things inside of one location. If you think about it, in terms of how you build the rewards and the value for increasing dwell time inside the stores and things like that. And Shopkick, the way the kickbucks kind of incentive works in terms of incenting consumers to use it. I actually like it the way it is now. And so they basically come out and said, look, we're going to try going into small businesses. They're running this little program. It's limited to certain cities. Let me see here: Austin, Dallas, Texas, in Texas, Chicago, Detroit, LA, San Fran, and what else we got here? New Orleans, New York, Seattle, and Washington, D.C. So first 1,000 businesses that basically sign up and qualify for this program, they're going to put in the beacon that transmits the ultrasound signal for free into these places, and just wire them up and away you go. And I don't know. I just don't know how, what's the value to the consumer for that.
Well, so what they've said is that their preferred types of business. So I went to the application process. I went through it, and their preferred types of business are coffee shops, yogurt shops, bakeries, family restaurants, and local fashion stores. And the other factors they say that are going to influence this, just right from their website, is that you have less than 20 locations. I think that means you have fewer than 20 locations, just a grammatical modification. But you're located in a shopping area, or you're part of a Simon Mall, or and your business has a good Yelp rating and your store design stands out. So those are the requirements, right? You have to be in those cities, you have to be in those categories, and you have to have these kind of features. But coffee shops, man, or yogurt shops. Like, this isn't something that you need wayfinding or help. This is something that obviously it's about pushing deals or deepening the relationship.
I get it, but I mean that when you go to small business now, I mean that's the same businesses that the Groupons and the everybody else is fighting for right now. So I think you have that challenge. I think the second challenge you have with it is just in terms of understanding the value from the retailer's perspective or the merchant's perspective. I mean, at the end of the day, the big guys that they've been successful with, I don't even see that as long-term sustainable, because we all know, really, every retailer out there, if you were to ask them, is going to say that, from a loyalty perspective, our customers are our customers. Mm-hmm. And, we don't really want to share our data with anybody. And, and so you're coming in here with an app that basically everybody's using, including our competition. I don't know how sustainable that is long term. And I'm not advocating necessarily for the big brand going and doing their own custom app per se, but I think all that has to still be that has to shake out, and that's why I think everybody's testing. So I think it's good that they're testing. By diversifying here. I just don't see it working for them in the small business side.
What's interesting about Shopkick is that their technology, it goes in phases, and certainly early location-based marketing and early location advertising and how to contain somebody or how to communicate with somebody while they're in your store. It may have needed a box and an ultra, the sound that it emits, and it picks it up with your iPhone, and this is how you get rewarded to make sure that you're actually in the store. But I think that ultimately that hardware combination is not going to win here.
It's not cheap either. I mean, obviously they're giving it away for free here,
but to 1,000 stores, right? So.
But this stuff's not cheap to wire up a Target store typically. Nope. From what I've heard, and the other thing too is I see the value when you're in a big box or Target or Macy's, in the sense of determining someone's actual position inside the store and pushing relevant offers when they're standing in front of the Pepsi display or they're in front of the HP section, mm-hmm. because they're actually there. And that's the whole point of having all these beacons and triangulating position of the individual in the store. But when you walk into a little yogurt place,
what's going to happen there?
What's the value of that? It doesn't make sense. Are you going to say, hey, well, the guy is actually he's standing in front of the mocha yogurt, and then he moved 1 foot over and now he's in front of the mango yogurt? Like, do you know what I mean? Like, maybe it's just
Shopkick dollars, right? Maybe it's the Shopkick, it's a way to ensure that you're in the store, but again, it just seems like it's an overkill for that.
And that's my point, right? Yep. The technology is just way too much for that. So, anyways,
but even if you think about it, is that I know mobile and location influence purchasing habits. I mean, that instinctively, that you know it. But I don't think that I've ever been in a situation. I've done product comparison while I'm standing in front of it. So I can be in a store and I would look at a product and I would scan the barcode, or I would scan a QR code, or I would look it up to get some reviews on it. But that doesn't happen very often. I'm usually a directed shopper. So, I'm kind of leery about that whole blanket, the way Shopkick's approach to this. So I'm with you. I don't know that this is long-term sustainable, and certainly moving into the small business where it is ultra competitive, and companies like Foursquare allow those stores to do their own deals for free.
Yeah.
So
no, like I said, I mean, I love Shopkick as a solution for big brand, for big retailer, and determining the individual position in a store.
Yep.
That makes sense to me.
Yep.
I can see value for that. And if you're a packaged goods company, if you're Pepsi or Coke, or P&G or HP or whatever, I see the value of that. I don't get it for small business. I got to be convinced as to why I need that level of hardware in a store.
But anyways,
we'll see how it plays out.
Anybody out there
Shopkick for big business.
Anybody who's listening to this or watching this who can clarify this, who can give some insight, we'd love to hear from you. Just flip us a note wherever you find this podcast.
Yeah. And so one other note on Shopkick. So they also announced this week they hired a guy named Doug Galen.
Yeah.
As Chief Revenue Officer. So they obviously they're trying to figure out how we make sure we make money. But the nice thing about Shopkick is they've always had an actual revenue model. Yeah. So I do like that about them.
They're very few and far between, those revenue models these days. Yeah. Speaking of changing things up, we're going to take a turn here and talk about Looped, man. Looped and the anti-Groupon, the opposite of Groupon. What do you think of this? Let's describe what it is first, and then let's talk about it.
So I have to be the guy that says I like this, because 3 months ago I was sitting with somebody here in Toronto, a VC, and I actually pitched them this idea of doing the reverse Groupon. So I can't now come and say I don't like it.
Yeah.
But, So they've announced this. It's called U Deals. Basically, what happens is the consumer says, "Hey, this is a business I'm interested in getting a deal from." So it starts with the consumer. And then they propose a deal to the business, and then the merchant can basically say, if there's enough people who are interested in it, I'll offer that deal, and then it becomes a deal at that point. So basically, puts the power back in the hands of the merchant effectively.
I think this is a pretty neat. I think it's unrefined. I think that there's a bunch of other things that I have some great ideas, but I'm not willing to share them right now on something like this. But I think that Looped is doing this. There's another company called Ringleader that's doing this, where it's basically. I like the idea. Who wouldn't want to hear somebody on the other end of the line say, "Listen, I got 200 customers that are willing to be your customers if you give this kind of deal or this kind of discount or this kind of incentive, and we'll provide that for you." Yes or no? Yes or no?
Yeah, absolutely. So Loop has to do something, and every 3 months or so they try something different. So hey, this is the latest offering. This is the quarterly offering from Loop.
Well, and I can't argue, but I think that
what was the last thing? Like, wasn't it 3 months ago they offered Q or something, like the location-based questions?
Yeah.
You could ask questions of people based on location.
And there are a number of companies out there that are doing that now, but they've taken it again. What I think about this idea,
the beauty of Looped is they've got great ideas.
Yep.
They announce a product offering, they push it out there, they get very little traction, but they spawn 10 new startups.
Well, I wonder where
of pushing it out with good PR.
Yep, I talked to a local, a Montreal-based, San Diego-based country and a Montreal incubator called Local Mind, and they ultimately do the same thing, but it's a different take. And I think the same thing with what Looped is doing here with U-Turn or U-Deals is that it's okay, but it's too much human intervention. It's going to require too much of a sales environment. So I think that somebody's going to refine this and do very well with it.
Absolutely.
But I don't think that it's going to be.
Next quarter, be assured, next quarter Looped will have a new product.
Well, they're like, I just don't think that Looped will succeed with this, because I think that it's too cumbersome, and they're underestimating the amount of effort that it's going to take to build this out, and they're underestimating the consumer, because I don't know that a consumer's patient on something that they want to buy every time, right? So I don't know that I'm willing to wait for 10 or 12 or 15 people.
But the nice thing, the good thing for Loop is it's not their only product, right? They've got 5 different things going. So,
I think this is good. It's good innovation. I just think that what we're going to see is some other very industrious company come up with the right way to do this. And but boy, do I ever appreciate these guys. They're like. They're the quarterly inventors, and I can't wait to see what they come up with next quarter. So Looped and U-Deals, check them out if you're interested in that. I like the idea. I think it needs some refinement.
Oh, it's a great idea.
Yeah. Well, of course, you pitched it. Well, that's it for the story. The stories for the week. TomTom expanding their coverage in Latin America. Amex and Foursquare. Foursquare hits 20 million downloads by December 31st, according to Asif. That's the number, but they hit 10 million. They've expanded their partnership across North America with Amex. B Media launches their personal mobile media service, which is basically a coupon or a Wi-Fi based couponing service. Shopkick goes small and medium-sized business, and we question that. What's their value there? And Looped launches the reverse coupon in UDeals, and those are the 5 big stories that you should know about in this past week. Now let's talk about our product of the week.
Yeah, so the product of the week, won't spend a ton of time on this, but it's Double Dutch, and the website is doubledutch.me.
Yep.
So this is the reason I want to bring this one up is Lawrence Coburn, who's the CEO of Double Dutch, was at the LBS Latin America conference speaking as well. So had a good chat, and a lot of people, when I go and speak at conferences these days, one of the prevailing questions that comes up over and over again is, we hear a lot about the B2C opportunities for location, the Foursquares, the Goalas, the Loops, the whatever, the deal sites. But, what are the B2B opportunities? And that's really where Double Dutch sits. Double Dutch is effectively has a series of pre-built apps called Hive, Hyve, with different functionality. And they're effectively white-labeled solutions that any business can take advantage of and use for B2B purposes. And so one of their clients, Cisco, for example, uses this as a tool that their sales force, as they're out selling and so on, can basically check in and on check-in effectively log their sales calls and fully integrate it on the back end into Salesforce.com or whatever CRM system that business is using. So, it becomes an interesting, way to leverage kind of location-based services, in a white-labeled kind of tool set. So, that's doubledutch.me, really cool. So if you're looking for B2B applications, check them out.
Yeah. I had a great conversation. I interviewed Lawrence on Untether.tv a while ago, and just a great conversation with this guy. Knows what he's talking about. I love what he's doing with Double Dutch. Go check him out, doubledutch.me. And you can also check out the interview on Untether. It's worthwhile. He's certainly a well-spoken, intelligent guy when it comes to this kind of stuff. I want to jump into our funding conversation, because I think that this is one of those big things that this week, in 3 deals, $88 million, but 2 massive deals here, right?
Yeah, two massive deals, and we'll start with the biggest, which is Foursquare. Again, we said at the outset that this is the Foursquare show. So Foursquare basically announced just the other day that they've now raised $50 million. On a post-money valuation of $600 million, led by our good friends Andreessen Horowitz, who seems to be at the front of every big deal these days. So $50 million on a $600 million valuation. Yeah.
Can I just say, what the fuck? It gets me nervous when I see this. So Ottawa, Canada, for those of you who are listening there, it's outside of Canada. During 1999-2000, during the peak of the bubble, lots of semiconductor plays here. Big companies building semiconductors, building fabs, the whole 9 yards. And they were getting $100 million, right?
Yeah.
To build out infrastructure, to build out chips, to do all that kind of stuff. What in God's name does a company like Foursquare need $50 million for, Asif?
Yeah, and I don't understand. What I don't understand is how the valuation can move that quickly. They've yet to make a profit. The last round of funding, they raised $20 million at $100 million valuation.
Oh my God.
And so now we're talking 50 million more at 600 million. And what have they done? They've grown the user base to 10 million users.
So how much money? These guys have raised about $80 million, haven't they?
Something like that, yeah.
$80 million. Like I think that Richard Branson is putting people in space.
Hold on. They're up to 60 employees now.
60 employees, yeah.
Yeah, so.
Oh, yeah, okay, that makes a difference. Yeah, each one of them making $1 million a year.
Every employee is making about $1 million.
Yeah, $1 million too. So yeah. I think Richard Branson is putting people in space for that much money, and these guys are building a check-in software.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, you talk about scale and scope. I think that's ridiculous. I'm going to put this down and say that good on them, but $50 million, and I don't criticize.
Hey, if you can get it, look. I mean, at least they're taking it. I mean,
yeah. Now's the time to take
$6 billion, but
now's the time to take all the money you need. Don't ever count on another round. Take as much as you can. And you know, I have a huge amount of respect for Andreessen and Horowitz. I have a huge amount of respect for these guys. But $50 million. Anyway. So good on Foursquare. $50 million. Go spend it unwisely.
Well, say they're going to basically expand the engineering team. I know they're moving hard to add people in San Francisco, especially on the engineering side. They're talking about growing internationally, so hopefully.
I read about that. Growing internationally is okay. So here's another thing. Maybe they're going to license some great data internationally. They're going to start to leverage somebody else's data. But what I would love to know. What could they have possibly spent $20 million on, and what could they possibly spend $50 million on? That's all.
Well, I mean, hopefully it means that they're going to go buy, Jaiping or something in China. I don't know.
Well, I mean,
if you're going to grow, that's one way to do it.
I don't think they would go and buy Jaiping. What they're going to do is they're going to drive this up so that you got a $600 or $800 million valuation. And they're going to go public and then go buy Jaiping in China.
Yeah.
Right? Like nobody pays cash for companies anymore, but this number worries me. And again, we're gonna go to the second deal. So I don't know what you feel about the Foursquare deal. $50 million is like, what do you think about that? Just what like yes or no?
No.
No. Okay, good. Second deal, $32 million.
Yeah.
Shazam.
$32 million for Shazam. I heard that song last night. I held up my phone and it identified it for me.
But it never works for me.
It's $32 million. So So
what they've done with the TV
now, Shazam's moving into the TV side.
Right.
So it's not just songs anymore; it's TV shows.
So you know what? Here's the thing: is that what I like about what Shazam is doing, is that they're using this technology to identify where you are. Basically, what they're calling is, it's auto fingerprinting, and what they're doing is they have a TV product, and basically anytime during the TV show you launch the Shazam app, and you get it to identify the TV show, and you're getting push deals or interactive additional snippets or videos or something like that.
From a value perspective, I think in terms of what the product actually does, I like it. I just don't know that you need $32 million for that.
Well, it's also cumbersome again, right? So Mizo allows you, like, if I'm an advertiser and I want to say, listen, I want to create a relationship with you. I want to bridge that gap between the couch and the TV, which is a deep crevice, right? So there's two ways to do this. Is that there's a company like Shazam where you hold up the app and it identifies the TV show that you're doing. It's cumbersome. You know the TV show already, like you know it. I'm watching Love Bites. I know that it's Love Bites. Now just give me the rewards. So the whole process of identifying the TV show or identifying that you're listening to it might work for Nielsen ratings, which is another opportunity.
Yeah, but how long has Shazam been around now?
Well, 3-4 years. They were one of the original apps.
Yeah, so they've been around for a while. They still haven't made a profit yet.
No, I know.
Okay, so these guys, from one of the reports I was reading, about 10% of the songs that are tagged, basically somebody clicks through to the iTunes store and and downloads that song. They still haven't made a profit.
Well,
and now there's we're facing stiff competition these days from all kinds of new guys come Hound and some of these guys. and others. And so, okay, we're going to move into the TV space. I get that. I see the added value pieces you can bring, related to that show or advertisers. But again, like you said, that's where Miso and GetGlue are already there, and it's a lot easier.
It's tons easier, and it doesn't constrict you. So, like, if I'm interested in Love Bites and I want to get those deals, I have to be watching the show and then hold this thing up and then do that at that time. So, they've had commercials where you have to do it during the commercial, and I've had songs playing and I can't find it on my iPhone. I'm like, okay, where's Shazam? Where's Shazam? I missed the song, right? Because it takes me that long.
No, completely.
So with GetGlue or Miso, when I identify that I enjoy that TV show, it's a quick clip. Right, I find it, I'm watching it, or I like that show, and then it creates a parallel conversation. I can then, as an advertiser, I know that I've got that interest, and when the TV show's on, I can send reminders, I can do all those things. It's just easier. So I appreciate the fact that Shazam is doing this. What I love about it was the technology that Disney used for Bambi, right, where it identified where you were in the movie and played back cut scenes or the animation process, how they built it, how they did all these things. But God, again, $32 million for this.
Again, it's the numbers that are bothering me with this. Same as the Foursquare, and it's just we're in the Wild West again. It's like we got the LinkedIn IPO, we got $6 billion for Groupon, we got $50 million for Foursquare, we got this is. Andreessen Horowitz, Kleiner Perkins, all these big guys are sitting there going, wow, like deals are getting done all around us. We better start throwing some big money in.
We don't want to lose.
We've got these huge funds.
Yep.
If we don't deploy this money, that's worse than not investing in it. And so that's what we're seeing. We're seeing this money just get thrown around.
Well, again, get it while you can. I mean, it's free.
Yeah.
Seems to be free.
Hey, look, I'm not begrudging, the guys that run Shazam or Dennis and the guys over at Foursquare. I mean, like, hey, if you can get it, take it.
Yeah, well, so that's 80. That's the 82 of the, as I said, of the 88 million. Our last deal. It's still a lot of money, but at least it's a conservative amount. And this is a Series B, $6 million round for Yipit.
Yeah, six million for Yipit. This is money now coming from Highland Capital. So Yipit is a daily deal aggregator. So one of those guys that's still out there, pulling deals from all the big players. I don't know. Again, they've got 250,000 subscribers. 250,000 subscribers on Yipit. They send an email. They say they're adding 1,000 subscribers a day. They claim they've grown from a year ago from 25,000 to 250,000 in a year. I don't know. And again, I'm not saying they're not doing something good. I'm not saying they're not
so they're
providing value to those 250,000 people in terms of aggregating deals. I'm just saying $6 million for what?
Yeah, so they're aggregating 300 or so deal companies like Groupon and Living Social and all those, and they're bringing it into one app, right?
Yeah.
$6 million. So I don't even know what that valuation is or gives them a valuation. But again, I say good on you. They have a 5 to 10% conversion rate. That's good. If anybody out there...
that's a $24 per user.
$24?
Well, if you take 250,000 users, $24.
And it makes the Foursquare deal seem so much more plausible. It's like $4.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
$4 a user, right? It's a deal then. If anybody is out there who wants to invest in a podcast, like while the money's getting it, we're here every week. We'll only take what, 200 grand? 200 grand? Give us a post money valuation of 200 grand, right? Isn't that? So Yipit raises $6 million, and it's probably for engineering and sales because that's all we hear right now. And I think that I can officially say that after these kind of numbers, I'm absolutely positively concerned about where this is going. And I think that we saw it with LinkedIn, a legitimate company with strong revenue numbers, good IPO. And then Pandora, no revenue, not profitable, inflated valuation to launch, screamed up to $22 and then plummeted down below the asking price, the original IPO price. And I think this is a concern, right? And
don't forget, we've got the pending Facebook IPO.
Yeah.
Soon to come. So.
And that thing's going to be worth $1 trillion.
Yeah.
I think they're over 700 million. Anyways.
Yeah.
But that's a legitimate. They're driving revenue. So
absolutely.
But man, oh man. Okay, so $88 million distributed this week. 2 big deals, 2 ridiculous deals, and 1 not so ridiculous deal, but still very large. We were talking like 3 months ago, Asif, like $250,000 deals. Remember those?
Yeah.
Bring those back. Those seemed real. The last thing we're going to talk about is our resource of the week, which is the Global Web Index, which is pretty cool. Let's talk about this quickly.
Yeah, so this is an interesting little report. From what's the group called now, Rob? I'm blanking here.
I'll help you here because I got them right here. They are the Global Web Index.
Index.net.
TrendStream, yeah.
What is it?
TrendStream.
TrendStream, yeah. So what this is if you're interested at all in kind of social media and how social media is being used on a global level, with a country-by-country comparison and breakdown of social networking, this is an infographic you want to see. So we'll post a link up to it, but really cool. It basically just does a global breakdown of utilization of social networks, as I said, on a country-by-country basis. Focuses on messaging, less on content sharing, but really interesting analysis.
It's pretty amazing. You get lost in here analyzing this, but it's pretty amazing. Like as I go through this, but hit them up at globalwebindex.net, and they call it the most detailed research study into online behavior and social media ever compiled.
Yeah, and it's just what I love about it is just to see when you visually see that that breakdown from country to country and North America versus Latin America versus Europe and Asia and so on. It's mind blowing really when I looked at it.
Lots of insight here. It'll tell you where the next company to get $50 million, where they're going to waste $50 million from a VC. Well, that was quite the week. Little controversial. We'd love to hear what you think about the money that's being dispersed out there in the wild in this market. An insane amount of money that's going out there. Good on them for getting it, but what do you think that's going to happen? What do you think the impact is going to be when it comes to valuations and this kind of tepid economy that we've got going on right now? And hopefully it spurs employment for a little while, but it doesn't create that bubble that everybody thinks it's creating. So we'd love to hear your comments about that. You can reach me at untether@gmail.com. You can reach Asif at the Wherever you found this, leave a message, and we will endeavor to respond. We've had some great conversations at LinkedIn. I love LinkedIn for conversations because you guys are smart. You're asking great questions and more comments. I love hearing that, from you guys there.
Yep.
And I will respond whenever I see a question posted that isn't crazy. I leave the crazy ones. Yeah.
Excellent.
I do that. This has been episode number 31. Asif, you are heading out to Chicago bright and early tomorrow morning for
something totally different for me. It's called the Pizza Executive Summit, actually. It's a gathering of all the greatest pizza minds around the globe, and I'm actually there at a non-tech conference to talk to them about how, very, very narrowly, how to use that how to use location-based marketing to actually draw new customers in.
I love it. Hopefully there's samples.
There is. The best part of the whole conference is the half a day tomorrow of touring Chicago's greatest pizza restaurants.
Oh, yes.
Yes.
I love it. So we will catch up next week, hopefully at our usual time and hour, for episode number 32. And we really appreciate you guys sticking around throughout this whole thing. Remember, if you're still here, you love us, obviously. Remember, you can subscribe through iTunes if you want this up to date. This doesn't go live on the website, or it doesn't get announced until Monday morning, as you know that. But if you'd like it a little bit ahead of time, I usually post it on Sunday afternoon, and you get a jump on the competition if you subscribe to us via iTunes. There's an RSS feed for audio and for video. Do it. You'll get all the stuff 12 hours before everybody else. That's pretty important.
That's it.
Yeah.
If you're hungry.
So we will be back next week for episode number 32. Asif, safe travels this week.
Thanks, Rob.
And for you guys who are still watching, listening, we love you. Keep coming back. Give us some feedback. Send us some guests. Send us some ideas. We'll use them. It seems like we're desperate, but we're really not. There's a lot going on, but we love to hear from you guys. See you next week, everybody.
Cheers.